NWP Radio.
You're listening to NWP Radio, a production of the National Writing Project.
NWP.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the dog days of summer, where, well, we're soaking in the sun, we're enjoying additional time to read, we're hosting institutes for teachers, we're leading programs for kids, and thinking about how much we love pairing National Writing Project educators with authors of children's and young adult literature. For the past 4 years, my co-host, friend, and, well, executive boss from the West Coast has worked with me in the network to host conversations about writing, reading, and working with the greatness of literature written for young people, the kind that inspires our instructional practices and, of course, our own writing. This is why I'm thrilled to be in the studio once again with Tanya Baker for another episode of The Right Time. Tanya, what's been on your mind this summer?
Oh, Brian. When we first began this adventure, who would have guessed that that Penguin Random House would publish a young adult novel by an author who lives near you in Connecticut, and the two of us would instantly think about pairing her with one of our favorite National Writing Project teachers who lives near me in California. Tonight we have author Katherine Morse with her, and with her one of our favorite National Writing Project teachers. Our dear friend Katherine Shizuko Suyeyasu from Berkeley, California, where I am. We're right down the road from each other. We are thrilled to have the two of them with us for the show and to learn from them as we discuss adolescence, the difficulties that come from illnesses, whether in the family or around the family, and the complexities of making the right decision. It's Katherine with a C and Katherine with a K tonight, and our listening audience is in for an incredible treat. Welcome, Katherines.
Thank you so much for having us.
So excited to be here.
Well, you know how much I love Phoebe at Penguin Random House, and so she sends me these books, and she's always like, "You need to read this, Crandall. This is going to be the next great book. You need to read this." But this time, the note came with me. I think this author also lives near you, and of course, my interest piqued. I grew excited, and tonight's author is a fellow nutmegger, the land north of the Long Island Sound, south of Massachusetts, and between New York and Long Island, Connecticut. Katherine Morse's debut novel, The Notes, is a 2025 Chinese American Librarians Association Best Book Honorable Mention for Young Adult Fiction, a 2026 Panda Book Award nominee, and was shortlisted for the Craft First Chapters Contest. In my hands right now is her latest book, The Summer I Remembered Everything. Summer Memories! Came out in April 2025. A Kundiman Fellow, Katherine received her MFA from Boston University, where she taught undergraduate creative writing for several years. Her work appeared in Joyland, Letters, Hoot, Bostonia, and elsewhere, and she has been a finalist. Her writing has been a finalist for the Beacon Street Prize and the Baltimore Review Fiction Prize. She lives in the Connecticut River Valley with her husband and daughter. Katherine continues to play and teach piano today, and also, she teaches piano every day, and also teaches English. She taught English for a while with my buddy who also teaches at Choate Rosemary Hall. You can find her at the web. I botched that a little bit at Katherine Morse, and you can learn more about who this great author is without Brian babbling. Over to you, Tanya.
Great. Well, I get to introduce our friend, Katherine Shizuko. Katherine brings 25 years of experience to teaching in Oakland, Berkeley, Union City, and the Philadelphia area at the upper elementary, middle, and graduate school levels. The majority of her teaching career allowed her to work with and learn from multilingual middle schoolers in a humanities classroom. She is currently the co-director of the Bay Area Writing Project. Welcome, Katherine. And now we're going to ask you, Katherine, to start us off with a writing prompt. And of course, people can pause and write along to this prompt if they like, or come back to it later. Katherine?
Thanks, Tanya. So much to think about with Katherine's book. So one thing I think is definitely just about relationships. So the prompt that I have is anyone with connections to other humans, basically all of us, understands that relationships are ever changing. At times, our connections to another feel easy and strong, and at times that same relationship can feel strained or troubled. it's normal for the ease of a relationship to go up and down. So I'd like to invite you to reflect on a current relationship with someone who feels important to you. What interactions or events have made it feel the way it feels right now? And was there a time when that relationship felt different? What made it feel that way at the time?
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Thanks,
that was a heavy question.
Catherine.
I'm writing on that one. Have a great conversation. We'll see you in a little while.
Great, thank you.
Catherine, I just want to say this is a huge privilege to get to talk to you. I so enjoyed your book. So
Thank you
thanks
so
for,
much for reading it. I was so touched by all your thoughtful questions, and it was so cool to see writing prompts that came out of the themes of the book. So thank you so much for that.
yeah, it, I'm, your book is a gift. So thank you. Um, my first question is at the start of the book, your protagonist, Emily, is navigating challenges in several of her relationships. Um, I'm wondering when you look back to when you were a teenager, what are some things that you wish you had known about relationships?
I was thinking about how when I was in 11th grade, I transferred to this arts boarding school. And before that, I had been at a super small conservative Christian school. And so suddenly I'm at this new school where a lot of my values were kind of being questioned. I was really struggling with religious faith, and I was really fascinated by my teachers and other students there. I really wanted to become an artist, and I just felt like my life changed a lot for the better. But during that time, I just allowed a lot of friendships to dissolve at the previous school. I wish that I'd known friendship and relationships in general take some work. And I wish I'd done that hard work of maybe explaining to some of my friends, like, I'm at this new school, I'm kind of becoming this new person, but I still want to be friends with you. So yeah, my advice would be like, just do that hard work of staying in touch with good friends because they are hard to come by. Um, Thankfully, I did stay in touch with one of my best friends from the arts boarding school, and she drove several hours last fall to come to my mom's funeral, and it was just really special to be able to see her at that.
I'm sorry about your mom, and I'm so
Really?
glad that you had someone who's known you for so long to be there for you. Um, Someone once told me that the thing about old friends is that they help us remember who we were. And I just love that idea because we are throughout our life so many different people.
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
and those things that you said about relationships taking work, I think that's something that's so relevant to all of us learning, not just when we're young, but as adults as well.
Yes, I think almost especially as adults because there's so many other competing priorities, and then as a kid, like I didn't have a spouse and I didn't have a child, and just other people that just are higher up on the like I need to take care of them first, but friendships are so important. So yeah.
Yeah, constantly learning. One of the themes that your book explores is escape. And Emily, she uses art, she swims, she even uses a summer job as a means of escape. And I'm wondering why you chose this particular theme to explore.
Yeah, so I grew up in South Carolina with my Taiwanese mom and Chinese Costa Rican dad, and especially my mom would say these things about like I really miss my old life in New Orleans where we used to live. She would call our town like a quote shitty little town. Um, Sorry, mom. Well, she did say that, and there was just this feeling of like we don't really fit in here, and I think my mom really exposed me to some great art and literature and music. She would take us to museums and the orchestra, and I think art for her was an escape. Um, my family and I also went through some pretty hard things when I was in high school and college, and like art and music was a really big escape for me. Um, and then I think even I wrote a lot of the book now, or like in this new life that I have where I'm living in this tiny town in Connecticut. And maybe there was an element of like, I do still miss the city and sometimes miss my old life. So just escape is this theme that has kind of been with me while I'm writing.
Um, I'm really struck by you're talking about your mom saying like that we don't fit into this town. And I think about some of the things my parents said. It also makes me think about Emily's parents. And even though the book, Emily is central, her parents play a big role. And I think we see them growing up as well. And
Yeah.
so I just find it interesting sometimes when I think about the things our parents said, and how those impact us. And maybe those things that, when you were like, sorry, mom, that those are just all part of like, they're still growing up as well.
Yes, totally. Yeah. I really admire Kelly Lloyd Gilbert's books, and I feel like she just makes sure that the adult characters are also having their own arc. So I was trying to learn from her about having, like, the parents in the book also having their own struggles and things that they were growing into.
I've not heard of Kelly Lloyd Gilbert. I'm gonna
Yeah, Kelly Loy, Loy. Gilbert.
LOY.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, because I think you do a phenomenal job of showing
Oh,
parents who struggle and
thank
parents who struggle as parents, and who learn as parents. I thought that that was one of the many really beautiful things about your book.
thank you.
One of the things that I love about you as a person is that not only are you an author, but that you were also a teacher. And I think that that's just such a powerful combination. So, having had the privilege of working with so many students and teachers over the years, I know personally that the work of teaching really matters. Um, and it's just exciting to talk about, to talk to a YA author who's also been a teacher. So I have a few questions about
Okay,
you
yeah.
as a teacher. So the first one is that I imagine that your work gave a lot to students. But I'm also imagining that your work with students gave a lot to you. Could you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I did teach at BU for a while, and that was fantastic because I was very much a beginning writer myself. And then seeing students and hearing about their struggles with writing, I would think, oh my gosh, like I struggle with that same thing. And here I am trying to teach you something that I'm also learning about. Um, and that was kind of helpful to just, I would write with them when we did writing exercises and um, be able to like see stories in a new way with them. When I was teaching at Choate, I was just going through so many big life changes. Like, I got married, I uprooted from my community, moved to a small town, started teaching high school for the first time, just like adjusted to this whole other kind of way of life. And it felt so good to go to work every day because it was kind of this missing piece in my life. Like, it was this intellectual and creative, stimulating community. Um, because we live in a kind of, it's a really cute town. It's a little bit rural, still has a downtown. Um, but at Choate, it just felt like, it almost felt like a city. It was so diverse. The students had so many ideas and questions every day, and it just felt really fast paced and lively. Um, So teaching there just gave me like this gift of community, which I loved. Um, my students also said a lot of really funny and interesting things, and I would jot down a lot of dialogue that I heard. And I would also tell them, like, I'm gonna maybe use this for a novel. So a lot of it did make it into the summer. I remembered everything. Like the character of Matt was like sort of based on my husband, but also sort of based on different students who would talk about they just loved bringing like random facts to class or um, making really big declarations about how they're not drinking any caffeine because of this and that. And so I don't know, it just they were really inspiring for thinking about how teens really talk and what they're interested in.
How lucky we are to have been teachers.
Yes, yeah.
And I think it's so cool for your students. It must have been so cool for them to know that they were influencing you as a writer.
Yeah, I had a good time with them. Like I actually got the email from Phoebe, my editor, while I was in the middle of teaching. Like I knew I was going to be getting good news soon about my first book, so I like stopped class, and everyone was very um, just. I'm sure that they were just having a hard time stopping working on their projects, but they were really excited, and I told them about it, and I shared like the book covers later on, and that was exciting with them.
I would imagine that that's really inspiring for them. Um, as a teacher, what is something that you were good at?
So I started teaching like the year right after the pandemic,
Oof.
or let's see, fall 2021. And
Mhm.
I remember the head of the English department telling me, like, don't be intimidated because even though you're at show, they're just kids and they just got out of this awful time. So just prioritize fun and their mental health. So I started this tradition of every single class, we would go around the room and share our highs and lows. Sometimes it was high low buffalo. Buffalo was a random thing that you wanted to share. The students told me about that. Or our rose, thorn, and bud.
Mhm.
And they loved it. And sometimes the class would take a little too long, like going over it, but it just felt so helpful. Like the students really got to know each other on a deeper level. I feel like I got to know them better, and maybe they felt more comfortable and safer just writing and sharing writing because we got to hear about what we were all going through. Um, so that was, I think, something I did well. Um,
I think that makes so much sense to me about the power of how that type of space impacts writing because
yeah,
writing can be really risky.
yes, can be so
And
vulnerable. Yeah,
yeah, I also just love, like, I'm imagining that, years from now, that when your students are thinking back on their experience with you, my sense is that that tradition is something that, though it took time and maybe it was stressful because it's like, oh, we were supposed to get to this, that that's actually going to be the thing that stands out for them.
I hope so. Thanks. Yeah.
Um, I guess still on the topic of teaching, something you were really good at, but on the flip side, what is something that you would like to have been better at?
Yeah, on the flip side of, well, as I mentioned, like we would take a long time sharing our highs and lows, and I think I could have done a better job of just organizing in a macro way, like knowing exactly kind of what our goals were for the end of the semester. I mean, I kind of had a rough idea of goals for sure, but just making sure everything was tying together and I wasn't just bringing in like, oh, I found this cool writing exercise we're gonna do. Um, One thing that's nice at Choate, among many, is they give you a lot of freedom with the courses. So I that sometimes made it just I just got carried away sometimes. And also planning my time as a teacher, not only in the classroom, but even with how much time do I spend reading student work and commenting on it versus like making lesson plans, all of that. It's so wonderful to have all that creativity. And then also, I think I would like to like pick some more teachers' brains to learn about how to get better at my time in that way.
Ooh, time's hard. And it's
Yeah.
one of the things I love about the writing project is just how it brings teachers together to be able to talk about um, so many things. But one of the things you were saying is like, you know, sometimes bringing in something that you hadn't planned for. And that sounds
Yeah.
like a buffalo, which I think is really cool. Um, when you think about your experience as a teacher, how do you think that that experience impacts how you write? And when I say that, I mean it really broadly. Like, how does it impact maybe your process or your style or your content or how you decide about content?
Yeah, so I felt that a lot of students would struggle with getting started and just writing that first draft, um, which is something I struggle with too. So I would have them read Anne Lamott's essay, Shitty First Drafts. I should have asked beforehand if we can swear on this show because I have now twice.
Well, to say that important title, it's such a good piece. So I'm glad you said
Yeah, it's
it.
great. Okay, thanks. Um, and just helping them work through, okay, you've got this kind of inner critic, like try to get rid of that. And it would just always serve as a helpful reminder for myself. Um, I also asked my students to keep me accountable with writing. I don't know if I would do this again because they were tough bosses for me. Like I would tell them like I need to write 500 words or maybe 1,000 words tomorrow, or I'm not allowed to have coffee. And then like they would check in with me like, "Hey, Miss Morse, did you did you write? Oh, no coffee for you." They'd see me like in the dining hall. So that was I think that was helpful. Um, I also was really inspired by some of my students' writing. Like one of them turned in an essay about her mom who had cancer, and it said something like, my mom might not watch me graduate. How am I supposed to deal with that? But then the very next day, she turned in a poem that was like, please, please let my dress get here in time for prom. And I just thought that that juxtaposition was so touching and also funny. So that was kind of an inspiration for Emily's character. Like, yes, you're just very concerned about mom, but also let me research eyeliner while I'm waiting for your surgery or yeah. So
That seemed
um
so real to me.
yeah, yeah. I also had a few students who were mixed race and just wrote these really honest poems about things people had said to them or feeling like they didn't fit in or like no one else looks like me, and just found myself very moved by that and kind of interested in that experience.
Um, I actually want to ask a question related to that because I think you make a really important decision to have a mixed race protagonist. Emily's mom is Taiwanese, her dad is Panamanian. She grows up in this predominantly white community in South Carolina. And her mixed race identity really influences so many of her experiences, be it sort of she connects with a coach, her swim coach, who's one of the few Black people in town. She sees her parents deal with overt racism. She contemplates her own identity. You had this great line about living in a town where no one looks like you. And then sometimes you're not sure how to feel about your face. So I'm really interested to know why this content, this why was her racial identity important to include?
Yeah, so growing up in South Carolina, people loved asking, where are you from? And I was really proud of where I was, quote, from. Like, I liked that we had this interesting multicultural background, and I wanted to share that with people, but then they would just be really dismissive, and it would feel like this really complicated thing to explain, like, okay, my mom's from Taiwan. And it just seemed like they wanted to just, I'm not even sure to this day, like they would just be like, where are y'all from? Or they would even yell out like, are y'all from China? Are y'all from Japan? Are y'all from blah blah blah? And it would just make me feel so bad. And then after moving away from South Carolina, I've gotten this question of like, what was it like growing up there? So I felt like this book was a response to both of those questions. Um, I'm also now living in this really small town that I do like. A, a while ago, I went for a walk around town, and um, I went into one of the stores, and this lady said to me, like, I've seen you around. And I thought that was really weird. And I came home and I told my husband, like, she said she's seen me around, but I haven't seen her around. And my husband was like, well, like, you stick out because, like, it's just a totally white town. And I don't know. And I do kind of walk around feeling self-conscious, and yeah, I feel like everyone kind of, whenever I am out, it's just like, oh, there's that Asian person again that we see. And so I just wanted to write something that would be kind of addressing, it's not like every day I'm being pelted with really explicit racism. It's just this feeling of like, I'm very self-conscious about my face and just that I do stick out. So
I hear that.
yeah. Where
Um,
did you grow up? I'm just curious.
I grew up in the Bay Area, but when I was in school, I was one of like two, besides my sisters,
Oh
two
wow.
Asian students. So it's like, is that your sister? Um, no,
Oh
this
gosh.
other Asian student is not actually
Yeah,
my
I feel
sister.
you. Yeah.
Um, or, my first year teaching, I taught in a predominantly white community, and there was one Asian student in the school. So it was like, is that your daughter?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Uh-huh. I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that just how race impacts how we experience the world.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I think your book is a real gift to someone who cares about that topic, either because that's their experience or because they care about what someone is experiencing that's not who they are.
Yeah.
Really like that. Um, One of the things, I mean, as you're talking about this topic, I think what I'm wondering about is like who you're envisioning as your audience. So as you're sitting down to write this book, who are you writing for, and how does that influence your choices about content or about how you write? Yeah, I think audience is huge, and I'm wondering about how that impacts you as a writer.
I was picturing, honestly, my Choate students. They were so interested in identity in general, racial and cultural identity, and also in just relationships. Like we would talk a lot about family relationships, especially because they're living away from home, and then relationships among each other. Um, I also had just a lot of really unfiltered, sassy young women in my classes. So I like the idea of this really irreverent narrator. Like I was excited to have someone who just says what's on her mind. Um, I think growing up in the South, I still remember when I was 7, my mom told me, you have to talk more or people won't like you. When I was trying to be a brownie Girl Scout, which didn't last long at all. But then I took those words to her, and I'm pretty sure she regrets it now. Like, or she would have regretted it. Like, wow, you just don't shut up now. Because I do love to talk now. But I think in the South, definitely there's this, like, the art of pleasant conversation and polite conversation. We need to make you feel comfortable is like kind of part of Southern hospitality, like being able to say the right thing. And it was just great at Choate when students would like raise their hands or maybe not raise their hands and just say their opinions on things, and they were very brave and um, would write these really courageous essays and stories. So I wanted to capture like this unfiltered narrator and Mrs. G herself kind of being um, these people that are pushing against those rules of what it is to be traditionally Southern.
Mhm. As you're talking about that, it makes me think about you writing for your students, but also reflecting your students as you write. Um,
Yeah,
that's like a cool gift for your students, I think.
yeah, I'm grateful to my students for that. Yeah.
Um, I when there's so much I love about your book. There's a part where I think you basically write an ode to rice, and I love it. Um, you say rice is an art in the Chen Sanchez household. And maybe I love this because I also come from a Kokuho Rose family. Um, maybe it's that you have just this incredible deference for this everyday staple. You liken the bag of rice, like when you're putting it into the car, as gently laying it down like a baby. So just that's one of many things that I love about your writing and about your book. What's something that you love about your writing or your book?
Yeah, thanks. We recently finished our big bag of rice, so we need to go back to get more. Okay, there's this short story by Miranda July called Roy Spivey. Are you familiar with this?
No, but I'm
Okay.
writing it down now.
There's just a part where, okay, so it's the protagonist is on an airplane. She sits next to this man that she calls Roy Spivey. And then she starts to feel like, oh no, I might be smelly. And she lifts her arms up and like asks the guy to sniff her. And then he sprays some Febreze on her. And I just love like how it's kind of bizarre, but it's also kind of real. Like there's so many times this summer when I've just been like, I'm pretty smelly because I do use I do use one of those natural deodorants that actually isn't that effective. But anyway, what I but what I loved about or just I liked being able to write about a female's a female character's physicality where you're kind of struggling with being sweaty. And Emily talks about like, oh, I've tried all these different antiperspirants, nothing's strong enough for me. And I thought that was kind of funny and also just really real. And I think again, maybe again, it's like my southern upbringing, like, oh, you have to be really dainty and make sure you like I often like just skipped shaving my legs like in middle school, high school, because I just was like, oh, don't feel like it. But then I would always feel very like everybody's looking at me, I bet, because like just didn't feel like it. But okay, now I feel self-conscious that I'm saying this on a podcast. But
No, it's super real, so I really appreciate
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think that yeah, sweat is just part of life, and especially now that I have a daughter, like I even sometimes pick up clothes from the boys section so that she can run around in the dirt and do her playground stuff and not be wearing some frilly thing. Like I just want her to enjoy her body, and also I want her to see characters that like have real
it.
bodies. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. What an incredible gift to your readers and your daughter. That's
Thank you.
that's really beautiful. Um, I think we have time for one more question. So I carry a belief that good writers take risks. And I'm wondering where a place in your book is where you think you took a risk, and what felt risky about that.
Okay, I think there were several things. I think one thing was that I in this book especially, really portrayed my own family, if I'm being honest. It wasn't exactly like this, but I have a dad who struggles with anxiety and is a wonderful, patient, caring dad. And he would bring a lot of anxiety to his love for us. And I wanted to kind of explore that. And as a parent now, I do have a lot of anxiety. So, like, I feel you, Dad. And then I'm getting a little emotional. Like, my mom was so tough. And um, so just wanting to, I mean, she was still alive when I was writing it, but just portraying her and her love for art and like her love for like cooking and just like keeping a really orderly house and all that. And then like my sister and I, we are so close, and at the same time, like there are struggles. Um, like, but I'm also the older sister. I'm the annoyingly perfect older sister. I'm like, I'm not that. I'm not. I'm not that annoying or perfect. But anyway, um, so just wanting to capture like they fight, but they still just love each other so much and secretly kind of both look up to each other. Um, so I think, yeah, took a risk with that. Kind of took a risk sharing that now that I'm crying. But yeah, I think that was probably the biggest risk that I took just because I'm showing people my own family, and then my own dad and sister read the book about themselves. So that's kind of a lot.
I I really appreciate your honesty in sharing, and it meant a lot to me, in large part. I mean, just with parents aging, and I very much want to write, and a lot of what I want to write about has to do with family. Um, and sometimes I'm afraid to put stuff on paper because what it will reflect. So really appreciate you sharing that.
And for us on the outside, let me just tell you that we could feel the emotion building through this whole entire conversation. It was one of the more genuine, sincere conversations we've heard on this show. But I think it's also true when we're writing from a deep place, a place that's connected to our past and our histories, and you're communicating stories that so many of our young people need to read but haven't been written yet because the publishing world weren't selling those books or putting them in the hands of libraries and schools, which this book does. It tells a story that will connect with kids. And I was drawn to the humor at the beginning, and I was thinking about, yeah,
Oh,
kids are funny and interesting, and like the way you were talking about. And then, oh my God, Catherine with a K said, isn't it so great to be a teacher? And I was thinking, I haven't heard those words said in so long. And it reminded me I have pre-service teachers working with me in the summer programs. This little girl looked up at this young man who's trying to be a teacher. She goes, "Yo, you remind me of my brother. I used to think he was a drug addict, but then I just realized he makes really stupid decisions. It's kind of dumb." And I was like, and he said, she said this to the kid, and the kid goes, "Oh," and I said, "You know what I love about this program? I just love that students are so honest with their feelings about us." And I said, "But that was really well articulated." And this poor young man was like, "What am I supposed to do with this information?" And it made me laugh, and you triggered that for me today. And I was just thinking about student work and why we do this, and we can't do the teaching job if we don't have books like this to put in the hands of our young readers. So thank you so much, so much.
And I want to thank Catherine S. for guiding Catherine Conn Morse into our community, because sometimes we're called the National Writing Project, Catherine. Sometimes people say, but isn't it the National Crying Project?
wait, what?
When we write together, we also often eat
Oh,
together, and we often also cry together. So
that sounds great to
you're in
me.
the club now.
100%
Yeah.
true for first-time listeners.
I'm going
Thank
to go
you
ahead
so
and share
much.
my screen, Catherine, so you can take us out with a writing prompt.
Okay, I will do that. But before I do, Catherine, I just want to say what an incredible privilege to get to hear from you. And I hope you'll come visit in California.
Yeah, I
If
would
you
love
do,
to.
I hope
You
you'll.
should come visit.
I would absolutely love to. Yeah, especially after this conversation with you, Catherine S. Thank you for being so thoughtful, and it was your listening that kind of allowed me to be so open. So thank you for just being such a soft place to land and inviting me to share in that way. And thank you to Brian and Tanya for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Ditto. Thank you, Brian. Yeah. Okay, so leaving with writing, we all face challenges, and in response to challenges, our challenges, we often seek out temporary escapes, an activity or place that allows us to momentarily forget about problems. And these can often be soothing in the moment. And different means of escaping can be helpful or sometimes harmful in the long term. I think we're all familiar with that. So the invitation to write is, what's one way that you escape, and how does that help you in the moment? And how does that impact you in the longer term?
Lovely. Thank you, Catherine. And my final job is always to thank everyone one more time. So thank you, Catherine Conmorse, for your beautiful book and spending time having such a thoughtful conversation about it with Catherine S. Thank you, Catherine, for being such an excellent interviewer. Brian, as always, thank you for being my best co-host. And most of all, listeners, thank you for being here with us. We're glad you were here. And if you want to make sure you never miss a great conversation between a teacher and a writer, then follow us with our newsletter or join the studio or find all our podcasts at NWP Radio. Thanks,
You're
everybody.
listening to NWP Radio, a production of the National Writing Project.
NWP. NWP Radio.